Guess who's back, bitch?
Hi everyone, welcome back to my booktube channel. My name is Tolani and you're watching Tea Time with Tea Reads.
Maybe I'll read a book, or maybe two or three. I'll add a few more paintings to my gallery. I'll play guitar and knit and cook and basically just wonder when will my life begin. Maybe I'll read a book, or maybe 17. I'll add a few more paintings to my gallery. Play guitar and knit and cook and basically just wonder when will my life begin.
So hi everyone, welcome back to my booktube channel. If you've been here before, welcome back, and if you are new here, you are most definitely welcome into my inner circle. So today I decided I'm gonna film a non-fiction recommendation video because after the killing of George Floyd, I took that as the push I needed to read more non-fiction, and that was one of my goals for this year, and I have been reading quite a bit of non-fiction compared to last year's zero. I decided to come here and recommend some of the books that I've been loving and have been very informative. They deal with race, racism, black identity, feminism and more. So the first book I want to recommend to you all is one I've spoken about quite a bit on this channel, and that is Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race, and that is by Rennie Edo Lodge. I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. It's fucking brilliant. Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race explores so many different topics such as eradicated black history, the political purpose of white dominance, white feminism, class and race, and how the two are often interlinked. And basically the book just outlines all the reasons the author Rennie is no longer talking to white people about race. I loved how informative this book is. I really learned so much about eradicated black history, in particular eradicated black British history. And I must mention, I've said this before, the author is black British, so she does focus quite a bit on racism in Britain, which I'm so happy about, because white people in this country love to pretend that racism doesn't exist, which is false. I don't understand how anybody could deny that racism exists in this country, because racism is rife in Britain and everyone needs to wake up, especially if you're a British person. I highly recommend this book. Everyone can read it. Like I said, this book is important. I love this book. It's very informative. It includes statistics, facts, like I said, history, case studies and interviews with so many different people. I think one of the interviews even was with the former leader of the UKIP party, and as we all know, that party is racist, anti-immigrant, racist, anti-black, anti-everything that isn't white. And of course it has some of Rennie's own personal experiences. The reason I love this book so much is because my favorite type of non-fiction is statistical analysis of the institutions slash systems that the author hopes to examine, mixed in with personal anecdotes, experiences and memoirs. In my opinion, you are trying, especially if you are trying to analyze a system such as racism, the book can't just mostly be, or even if you're trying to analyze something like feminism, it can't just be about your experiences. There also has to be case studies, things to back up what you're saying. There has to be evidence. You can't just make a point and there's nothing to back it up. I just don't like when non-fiction is mostly personal anecdotes, and luckily Rennie is brilliant. Most of it is facts. Like I said, there are some of her personal experiences in this, but I really enjoyed that it was an equal mixture, in my opinion. The next book I want to recommend to everybody is Hood Feminism by Mikki Kendall. I gave this a 4.2 stars out of 5 stars. I'm so happy there's some other apps emerging other than Goodreads, because maybe we'll get half stars. But anyway, Hood Feminism by Mikki Kendall is all about feminism, and it talks about how white feminism, mainstream feminism, isn't inclusive due to its tendency to overlook and ignore a myriad of circumstances such as access to quality education, poverty, the food crisis, gun violence, racism and class as well. And this book is all about intersectional feminism. If you don't know what intersectionality is, there will be a description placed somewhere on the screen. But I really enjoyed this book, and I listened to it on audiobook, and the audiobook wasn't too long, if I'm remembering correctly. And I think Mickey Kendall reads this herself. And I saw Sunny's review, and it was very brief, and she said this is a very good introduction to feminism beyond white liberalism. And on that note, I want to add, feminism does exist beyond white feminism and white liberalism. And if you claim to care about all women, if you claim that you care about inclusivity and you want your feminism to be more inclusive, I highly recommend you read this book and check yourself. Because like I said in my racism video, you can't claim you care about women and you want the elevation of women and women's rights if you don't take into account all women. Okay, you can't just say you're a feminist if all you care about is white women. I'm sorry, it's not valid. It's not even an opinion, it's fact. And I also want to say intersectionality was a term coined by a black woman for black women. The author is black, but I just wanted to mention that and sprinkle it in. The next book I want to recommend to you all is I'm Still Here, Black Dignity in a World Made for Whiteness by Austin Channing Brown. I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars, but the reason I'm recommending this book is because it is really interesting. Black Dignity tackles white privilege, racism, white rage, black identity. And the reason I thought this one was so interesting is because it touches quite a bit on Christianity and how Christianity and the author's faith ties into her blackness, and how it also can tie into race, which is something I have yet to read in non-fiction as of now. And the reason I thought this is so interesting, I'm a Christian as well, but something I see brought up quite often, like on Twitter and in discussion, is if God exists, why has God allowed black people to suffer for all these years? Like, why? And whilst the author doesn't necessarily delve into trying to pick apart and answer that question, there are still some interesting discussions that take place surrounding that, about Christianity, God and blackness. I have a review on Goodreads for this book, which I'll link down below, and I go a bit more into depth. The reason I didn't give this 5 stars is because there was not enough facts and case studies for me. It was more so personal experience and memoirs, which again is extremely valid. By no means am I saying that this is not valid just because it was mostly her personal experiences, but I would have liked to see more statistics and facts and case studies, and the author trying to analyze racism and its institutions using these facts and statistics. But again, I still really enjoyed the book. I listened to it on audiobook. The audiobook's only 3 hours and I was on like 2.5 speed, so I finished this very quickly and I recommend it. The next book I want to recommend is one I very recently read. I've been meaning to read it since it came out last year, with Murky Books. Murky Books is an imprint of Penguin, and Stormzy started it, and I love Stormzy. Stormzy is our activist king, okay? I love that man so much. And this book is Taking Up Space, The Black Girl's Manifesto to Change by Ore Ogunbiyi and Chelsea Kwakie. I don't know if I've pronounced that correctly. I think it's a Ghanaian name, so I apologize for the butchering of that name. I'm usually very good with Ghanaian names. Now, this book basically touches upon the author's experiences at Oxbridge. Oxbridge is Oxford and Cambridge, which are two of the most prestigious universities in the world. They're extremely white, basically practically devoid of working class people. You can just kind of imagine what kind of an institution it is. This book gives an inside look on the UK education system, and how the UK education system is a system that is inherently racist, lacking of diversity and elitist. This book takes a closer look at the education system and the problems it has, and as a result the effect it has on society. I thoroughly enjoyed this book. I listened to it on audiobook. The audiobook's only 5 hours and it's read by the authors themselves. However, I read this on like 2.5 speed. One thing I really enjoyed about this book, like I always say that I'm not the Prime Minister of black people, I don't speak for all black people. The authors make that very clear, that every black person's experience in university and in the world is different, so they can't speak for everyone. But what they did is they interview, I think, around 12 other black people. 10 of these people they interviewed were black women and 2 are non-binary. So they did that, and what it really did is solidified the author's experiences and how lack of diversity and the issues these women faced is not just a one-time thing. It's clearly a problem we have across the country for all these different people to be coming and speaking, and their experiences are similar. It could get repetitive in parts, but I still think it's a very good read, especially if you're a black university student or college student, and especially if you're a black student in the UK. So those are the books that I have read and I'm recommending. I also have quite a few books on my Libby hold, and there's going to be a screen in a minute which shows all the books on my Libby hold that I will soon get to and be reading, and I will probably make another recommendation video after I've read those books if I think they are up to par. My favourite book that I've spoken about is definitely Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race. I think that book is spectacular. So thank you so much for watching my video. Please like, comment and subscribe, and follow me on all my social media. It'll be linked down below, and I'll see you in my next video.